Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cannon Chat, a new feature on AFC Game by Game, where me and Was the Gooner, thankfully, my wonderful guest for this evening, will be discussing a whole host of Arsenal topics, hopefully throughout the course of this season. Of course, it's going to be a rather difficult one tonight. I did have a whole host of topics to discuss, but that's all gone out the window following Arsenal's devastating 2-1 defeat at home to the Hornets, Watford. Absolutely horrendous game. Was you, of course, were at the game, but just before we talk about what a horrendous evening it was, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. And thank you very much for having me on for the first one. And I'm delighted to have a little chat with you tonight. Unfortunately, it's off, as you say, the back of that disaster last night. But we carry on, don't we? We're football fans.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something worth talking about. Just before getting to this, I will apologise just for the rescheduling and all sorts and the fact we're doing this at 11 o'clock. I mean, hopefully the more keen ones of you out there will still be tuning in. There's a lot to talk about, of course. You were at the game yesterday, as was myself. Not particularly great atmosphere from the fans throughout. Maybe that stemmed into the team. It was that first half. I can't get my head around it. Do you put it down to the team lineup? Do you put it down to the players that were on there on the pitch? Was it Arsene Wenger's stigma into those 11 players on the pitch? I mean, I just can't get my head around it, mate.
Where'd you start, mate? There's just so much that was so wrong, and like you said, from the word off, it was a struggle, and we didn't, like the majority of games recently, we haven't started well. I was a bit concerned about the team selection with Gabriel and Iwobi on the right again, the real lack of pace and lack of outlet out there, and the two CMs and Sanchez coming in off the left and Giroud, and it was just a struggle. And early doors, they just got at us. They knew what to do. I thought their new signing was absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic.
And I thought it was very intelligent the way they utilised him. I thought they was playing 4-5-1, and every time they went forward, it became a 4-4-2, and he was getting up alongside Deeney and just causing us real havoc. And as you say, the atmosphere was dull. The weather was absolutely horrendous. It was soaked through even before we even got going. And it was just one of them nights. And we've come too accustomed to seeing that. And really, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more tactically and how the game developed. But from the first minute again, we just were not at the races, miscontrolled. You can blame everything. You can blame the manager, you can blame the players, you can blame individuals, you can blame the systems. But really, it was just one of them nights that we've been having far too often for me over the last 2 years, especially at home. It's just, again, frustrating.
You know, it felt exactly like last season when we lost at home to Swansea. Joel Campbell scoring that goal. It was the exact same game, effectively, apart from that we didn't score first. And we never really had any clear-cut chances in this game in the first half. It was probably... You know, in my years of going to the Emirates, it was the worst first half I've seen. We were that bad. We just never got going. And the argument that I've heard over the past 24 hours pretty much has been that 11 players was good enough to beat Watford, which, you know, you could definitely argue it was. That's a team of full internationals. But the minute I saw that lineup with Giroud starting up top, the first thing that came into my head was we're playing right into their hands. They've got Prodl, Kabul, Cathcart playing at the back. Slow players. Alex Iwobi, not the paciest of players. It just seemed to be a lineup that would work to Watford's favour. I mean, did you ever get that sense throughout the course of the game?
Yeah, straight away from the off, you could see, and I think they had realised that very early. And like I said, and Niang kept going out on the left wing and then isolating Gabriel, and Deeney was winning all his duels with Mustafi, and we had no one in the middle of the park to take control of the game. But Ozil was running the channels from the first minute. We weren't supplying Giroud with any sort of cross, and anything that did go to him didn't stick. And the thing is with Giroud is he's very good at first-time balls, in my opinion. And when the ball's laid into him, he's ready to lay it off straight away. But without the retention of width and without the fullbacks Bellerin getting forward on one side, Giroud's never going to have a first-time ball, and he's got to stick off him, and then it almost becomes five-a-side football. And what we've seen many teams do to us, in my opinion, is they break quick, and they know that. And we saw it for the first goal. We lose the ball in the middle of the park. Fullbacks are high up the pitch. Obviously, it's a terrible throw from Gabriel. It's bypassed Ramsey, and all of a sudden, they're 3-on-2. And you're thinking, how has that happened? I mean, why, for me, I don't understand why Monreal was as high up the pitch as he was on the other side when we had a throw-in on the right halfway line. And it was just a comedy of errors. Coquelin just gets absolutely skipped past Mustafi square, and it was just a nightmare. No one reacted. The rebound come out. Monreal was slow to get back in on Deeney, and the whole goal just epitomised the way we started. And and we didn't respond, did we, mate? It was just, I don't know what you thought about the goal, but I just thought it was calamity. And once you do concede that goal, you certainly don't do what we've done after that. But it was just a mess.
No, as you say, an absolute catalogue of errors. But the second goal for me was just a million times worse than that first one. I mean,
No,
the first one you can kind of, although it was awful to give the foul away in the first place, but the way the free kick went in, I mean, that's unfortunate. Those type of goals do happen. But the way we responded was just pathetic. And it was petulant the whole evening from Arsenal. It was absolutely horrendous. I want to talk about the changes in this Arsenal team because we made 10 changes going into this game. The only player retaining himself in the team was Mustafi. Why do you think Wenger made so many changes when we'd evidently seen players like Chamberlain, Lucas Perez, Theo Walcott perform so admirably in that game at the weekend against Southampton, where we put 5 past them? Theo Walcott on a hat-trick, Lucas Perez setting up goals for fun, had a fantastic game. He had such an impact when he came into the game against Watford. Why wouldn't you start with these type of players? Because Gabriel's got no pace. I mean, even Kieran Gibbs has a great chance to be starting at left back because Monreal's got no pace. Iwobi's got no pace. Giroud's got no pace. No pace in the side apart from Alexis Sanchez. And he's our only pacey player, but he wants to retain the ball for as long as possible. It speaks volumes. But why do you think, relating back to the question, why do you think he made so many changes going into this game?
I'm baffled. Absolutely baffled. We saw at the weekend, fast Arsenal, pace, width, aggression, power, everything you want from your football team, everything that excites a fan, that puts the bums, gets people up off their seats. And where did it all go? In a few days, where did it all go? We went back to the slow, pedestrian, narrow. We had no retention of width. We had no one putting balls in the box. We had no one running in behind. We were tippy-tappy. And we just killed ourselves. And we do it time and time again, playing to the opposition's hands. And I don't know, like you mentioned Swansea, but there's been lots of them. And even this season, Southampton at home, we struggled over the line. Middlesbrough the 0-0. All of this is tactical. And I just do think we saw, after we did make the quick switch at half-time, when Iwobi went onto the left for the 20 minutes, it was a completely different player. And I think it's more of a system and a tactical mishap than, I mean, surely after 10 minutes, when I was looking at it, I was thinking, right, we're not getting a grip in this game. We're really not started very well. Let's switch the wingers for fucking 10 minutes. Let's get someone on who's going to get wide and retain the width and do something a bit different. But no, Sanchez still on the left, coming inside into a dead end. Iwobi coming in off the right. You've got Ozil making runs left, right and centre when really you just want him sat in the middle of the park. And why he made them changes, and as many changes he did, I don't know personnel-wise, but the main change for me that upset me was the approach to the game. We just completely changed. It's like we're two different beasts, and that Arsenal is not the Arsenal we want to see. And we always link it with individual players, and we say, "Oh, it's Giroud, be slower." I don't think it is as easy as that. I think if you put Giroud in the system we had at the weekend, I think he would have succeeded with the way we're playing. And it's just, I don't know, if you got Welbeck to one side and Walcott to the other, the reliance ain't really as much on the centre forward. He could obviously drop in and do exactly what Perez was doing, but the whole day was just really one to forget. And it was just, I'm really down at the moment about things, to be honest with you, Cookie.
Yeah, sadly, we can't forget it too swiftly because we've still got to talk about it for a little while. I mean, I really don't enjoy talking about those kind of performances. But the one thing that I can't quite get my head around is why, I mean, by the changes, the players just didn't seem up for it. They really did not seem geared up for this game. And I don't know what you put that down to. I don't know whether you put it down to Arsene Wenger being in the stands. I don't know whether you put it down to just the players simply not caring enough about this title. But, I mean, even players we rely on, the likes of Mustafi, the likes of Koscielny, I thought they had particularly poor games yesterday. Our defence was a shambles, especially in that first half. And the only reason it didn't get exposed in that second half was because we had so much of the possession and we were pressing Watford so hard. But, I mean, we could have quite easily conceded a goal on the counter there. I mean, why aren't the players up for these kind of games? Millwall just put a goal past Watford, beating them 1-0 at the Den. Watford haven't won a game since the 16th of October away from home on the road. I mean, they conceded God knows how many away from home. Why can't the Arsenal beat them on their own patch?
You know what they're going to do. You know they're going to sit deep and they're going to pray and wait for the counter. And like you said, we were so slow out of the traps. Watford were dominating the early proceedings. And you're sort of thinking, well, hang on a minute. Well, we're at home, and this is the Arsenal we've become a bit accustomed with lately. We don't seem to be front-footed and aggressive, and sort of all the best Arsenal teams, in my opinion, are always the ones that go out there and say, "Look, we're Arsenal. Deal with us. We're going to win this game, and we're going to attack you, and you're not going to know we'll sit you." And for the first 20 of the second half, that was the Arsenal we saw. And why are we not starting games like this and coasting? And it's becoming a regular occurrence. And realistically, the frustrations that we see week in, week out it's inexplainable. And these are professional footballers. And I think it's got to go deeper than looking man to man and saying, "Look, why aren't we up for this?" Because Alexis is up for every minute of every game. And in the first half, for me, he looked like a pub player. And a lot of it, we're cramping our own style of play. Whenever we get the ball, we can't play it anywhere. We're struggling. The centre-backs had a massive disconnect to the central midfield. Ozil wasn't linking the game because he's being asked to run the channels. We just were a mismatch of frustrations and poor performances all round. Touches, first touches. Yes, it is partly individuals. Yes, it is partly tactics. But it's a recurring theme, and that's the worrying issue for me. It's not like it's a one-off and you go, "Oh, we had an off day." This is something that we've been seeing time and time again. The Burnley game was the same. We've talked about many other home games, and it's just something needs to change, Cookie, because it's the same old thing year in, year out. And it's not just this season. I'll probably say over the last 2 years especially, we've seen a similar blueprint. Teams turn up the Emirates, do exactly the same thing, know that we're going to rely on our fullbacks to be high, wait for that to happen, in behind, and they've done us. And it's the same thing, mate.
But the thing I can't work out with that is, you say relying on fullbacks. Well, we don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to do that because if you look at the game against Southampton, with the players that we've got zipping about in Perez, Walcott, Alexis, if he'd have started this game as centre forward, would have been absolutely fantastic for this game. To get at players like a boy, it'd have spread them. It'd have made it so easy for us throughout the course of this match. You would have hoped. So why that blueprint worked so well for us throughout the course of this season? Our best results against Basel at home, some of our best performances, Ludogorets 6-0, West Ham away, Chelsea at home. Those have been our best performances and results with Alexis Sanchez up top, with pace around him. With Walcott on one side, with a tricky Alex Iwobi on the left, with Ozil in the middle, absolutely having the time of his life feeding these kind of runners. Why have we just... I know Olivier Giroud's been banging form, but why would you bring him back into a team that evidently plays better when you've got a fast-paced Alexis Sanchez leading the line with Walcott to one side?
This is the question that I think, frustratingly, 90% of our fans are asking ourselves. And why? When you've got such a large percentage of people who all agree, who all see that fast Arsenal, aggressive Arsenal is the best way to play, and we've seen the rewards of that a few times this season. The Chelsea game, like you said, the Basel game, we've had some very, very good performances, but we've also had a lot of very, very abject ones. And there's a fine line between... It's
a very even split, I think, between the good performances and the poor performances that we've had. The results have really highlighted, cast a shadow over the performances that we've had.
And it's just so poor, Cookie. And I'm very, very down about things at the moment. And Arsenal, I really am losing all belief and trust in what he's trying to implement, because you've hit the nail on the head with the blueprint that we saw at Southampton. It's not difficult to replicate that. And as you said, Mesut Ozil would have an absolute field day. With Welbeck's movement was absolutely sensational. He knew he didn't always come in. He didn't always stay wide. We had the same with Walcott. When the centre forward drops out, then them two can come in and become that extra centre forward. And we just completely forgot about that style, forgot about that way of playing, and just... The worst thing is, I think if you are going to play Olivier Giroud, he's 6'4". Supply the man with some deliveries. Give him something to work with.
That's never been the case, though. Never been the case.
No, exactly. And that's the one thing I'd say for him. Considering the amount of goals he's got and the amount of years he's been at Arsenal, we've never, ever really put a team out to play to Olivier Giroud's strengths. And you see people like Lewandowski, who's phenomenal, and even people like Mario Gomez, who's scoring 30 goals a season at Bayern Munich. He's not... I think Giroud's on a level with Gomez, if you ask me. If you supply the geezer... It's just frustrating how we've got all these individual players and we're playing a system, for me, that disrupts the flow of the team and actually reduces the abilities of our starting 11.
No, it is incredibly frustrating when you see that we started with Iwobi on the left yesterday, Alexis on the right. They're both kind of playing not in their favoured roles. And you've got a player like Walcott, a natural right winger, Lucas Perez, who's been fantastic for us on the left, and you've got a big 6'4" striker in Olivier Giroud, that would work. It would be fantastic for us. But and logic suggests that would work. So why Arsene Wenger can't see it? Why he's so adamant to play this system? It bewilders me. But I think there's a great argument to be made for Arsene Wenger having too much belief in certain players. Do you think it comes down to that?
I think he's got too much belief in his system. I don't think we can really blame individuals, because we've seen squads. We've seen 4 or 5 different squads now fail, haven't we? Let's be honest. We've seen 4 or 5 full sets of players come unstuck with exactly the same things year after year. And especially, like I was saying, the last 2-3 years, this is what's really frustrated me, because we've got Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil at Football Club, and we've got to be getting the best out of these players. And finally, we started seeing something this season. And we've seen Welbeck come back into the side for one game, and we've seen with Walcott, Welbeck, Bellerin and Gibbs the power and pace we can have, and you build teams. The middle of the park sorts itself out. We made Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Ox look like 2 top class centre midfielders, because we had the balance, we had the stretch of the team, we had the pace, we had things around them, and we worked. And then all of a sudden, we just seem to limit ourselves again, and the balance of the individuals. I mean, for instance, the centre midfield, I don't know how you saw it, but I didn't see Coquelin sat deep. I didn't see Ramsey pushing on. I didn't see a defined role for the first 20 minutes when they were on the pitch.
Really
it was disjointed, and Coquelin was pressing high, then Ramsey's dropping in, and then they're switching, and then they're side by side, and we're caught square. And all these situations are avoidable if tactically we set out a system and we actually implement it. And it's almost as if sometimes Wenger, does he trust the players too much? Maybe, but I think he gives it too much creative freedom and too much, look, you go out there and you do what's best, you're good footballers. But it can't be like that. It really cannot be like that. And the frustration for me lies in the repetitiveness of the situation, Cookie. And that's what does me in, mate, that I'm seeing the same thing. I've seen that same game in the last few years 10, 15 times.
Well, I mean,
it's painful.
It's got a horrible repetitiveness about it. Everything to do with Arsenal in recent years has these kind of performances, these results. And this season, we've seen this exact season the past couple of years, and it's horrible. I mean, we are still in a very, I was going to say fortunate, but in a very slim position now where we can just about muster a very small title charge towards the end of the season. I mean, there's still a lot of football to be played. There's 3-4 months left to be played. We get a result at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. You know, anything can happen. But based on what I've seen over the past few years, based on what I saw last night, it's really hard to have belief in this team. But you know, if I didn't believe in it, then there'd be no point in watching it. But we'll get on to
exactly
into that game on Saturday a little bit later. I think it's worth talking about the midfield yesterday, because I know that, you know, you and me have had a long debate from time to time about Aaron Ramsey, about Granit Xhaka, etc. And we did see Francis Coquelin and Aaron Ramsey line up alongside each other, and it was always going to be interesting to see how they'd work. It's not really fair to talk about them in great detail, because they did only have about 15, 20 minutes with each other. It was always going to be difficult for them to, I feel, especially when they were coming into a game where they hadn't really had a lot of time to practice with each other. I mean, what did you make of the midfield, especially Aaron Ramsey's performance for the time he was on the pitch?
Poor. And a lot of it, again, I know I keep going back to systems, but it is very, very important that we are not seeing, I said, with these 2 players, I think they need defined roles. I don't think you can just freewheel them. And I think Arsenal over the recent weeks with Xhaka, Ramsey, we saw defined roles there. We saw Xhaka sitting in, and we saw Ramsey being the legs and the engine, and it was working. And even though we weren't playing with the pace and the width that we can, we were still getting away with it, because it was a bit more of a stagger. I think that Coquelin, for me, everyone's enjoyed him pressing high this season, and so have I. He's won a lot of tackles. He's running around like that, doing well. But for me, when he's alongside Ramsey, I think we need to say to him, look, Francis, you just sit in front of the back 4. You be the cock block. You sit deep. You sniff the danger, and let Ramsey be the legs. And they had no defined roles. And then when they do get the ball, how many times we saw Ox ping 4 or 5 balls, didn't we? Early balls at the weekend. He looked like Pirlo. But the pass is only as good as the run. If there's no one there showing him wide areas, if everyone's coming to feet, clustering in, you've got Alexis coming in off the left, Iwobi in off the right, Giroud coming deep, Ozil's, the poor geezer's just running wherever he can to find space. it's hard for the CMs to get the ball and progressively pass quickly when there's nowhere to play it. And we can't judge two players after, even if they played 90 minutes and we won 5-0, you can't say that they were a brilliant midfield pairing because you've got to give them time. But unfortunately, we've lost Aaron Ramsey and the midfield. I mean, it was incredible the way the game. I mean, we ended up, didn't we, with a midfield two of Alex Iwobi and an injured Oxlade-Chamberlain. Well, I think we just sort of went 4-2-4 in the end, and it was just crazy what happened in the game. But I'm sure we'll discuss the second half and what happened. But with regards to them two, Koch and Ramsey, I mean, we're gutted we lost Ramsey now and we need him at this time. But it was shambolic. The whole team was shambolic around them, and them two in the middle just had no defined roles. They didn't know what was going on, and no connect to the centre backs. There was huge spaces, and we've seen it all before. We really have. But it's easy for us to turn around and blame Coquelin, blame Ramsey. We can play the blame game on all these individuals, but I just think there's a bigger picture.
So do you think that maybe if we, let's say we've still started with Francis Coquelin and Aaron Ramsey, but maybe we've got Theo Walcott on the right, Alexis up top, Ozil in behind, and Lucas Perez or Alex Iwobi or whoever on the left, do you think maybe we'd have seen a much different result and maybe a better performance from Coquelin and Ramsey in the midfield?
100% in my opinion, but that's just me. I'm looking at the system. I'm looking at spreading the pitch, creating the space. It gives Ozil more areas to operate in. We've seen what Alexis has been doing, switching with Ozil coming deep, Ozil going on beyond. We're creating havoc, and Ramsey's ability to be the connector, to run from box to box is so underrated. But unless we're playing wide, there's nowhere to go. And what happens is we end up getting a big cluster, and I think they're side by side. And as soon as we lose the ball, they're too easy to bypass. And like we saw with Monreal high up, Gabriel on the right, we're just too easy to bypass. And that is a byproduct of what the team's doing as a whole, not just the individuals. And I would like to see them too. We saw what Ox and Maitland-Niles done as a two. I mean, I know we were playing an understrength Southampton team, but as a footballing team, we just looked a million times better than we have for a while. And I just want to reserve judgment on individuals until we get this right, because in my opinion, I look at our squad and I think we got probably the best squad Arsene Wenger has had since we last won the league. And why is it going so wrong? Why?
Now, the infuriating thing is, I mean, I'm watching the Man City game tonight. I'm watching the new players that they've got in their team, but I'm also looking at the more older players that they've got, the likes of Kolarov still starting for them. And you look at the team that we've got and the freshness, the players that we've brought in over the summer, the quality we've got in this team, young players coming through like Adelaide, Niles, Alex Iwobi, etc. You think, we've got the best squad in the league. And I don't think it's arrogant of me to say that. I think in terms of numbers and quality and depth, the game against Southampton evidenced that. The quality that we've got and the options we can have for these games against the likes of Watford. I mean, it's infuriating knowing that we've got such a diverse and exciting team that we're still picking up these kind of results and having these kind of performances. You can't help but wonder what another manager would do with this team. But I mean, that's a completely different debate. I won't get into that too much. But one player that I feel was really hard done by last night was Oxlade-Chamberlain. Didn't get a start in the team. I know that when I tweeted out my preferred lineup, you said you wanted to see Coquelin and Ramsey perform in the midfield too, which I can totally understand and respect. But I mean, I thought, if we'd have had Coquelin sitting with Oxlade-Chamberlain performing in the way that he did against Southampton, I think that would have worked to our favour to drive through the midfield of this Watford side to provide that link between defence and attack, and above all things, to give him confidence, because he needs a run of games in this team, Oxlade-Chamberlain, if we're going to see him prevail. And that game against Southampton was probably one of the best in recent years that I've seen from him. So why do you think Arsene Wenger's decided to drop him to the bench for this game?
These are all great questions because none of us can actually answer. And I'm sure a lot of us are thinking similar things. And especially, apparently, it was rumoured that Ramsey struggled in training on Friday. Apparently, he had some sort of niggle and he come off training. And I don't know, he put in such a great performance. But, Cookie, what I'm saying is the lineup we saw, I genuinely do believe if you had put Ox in the middle alongside Coquelin, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. Because
I don't think it would have. If we'd have started with that front four that we did, then I don't think it would have made a difference either. But had we started with Walcott, Perez and Alexis, I mean, well, essentially a whole different team would have seen a different result.
Well, luckily for him, obviously with a Ramsey injury, got quite a few minutes, didn't he, in the end? But the thing is with Ox, I mean, I don't know what he suffered with injury. We were speaking earlier, and Mark said apparently it was an impact injury. But in the ground, for me, at one stage, he couldn't even walk when we had 10 men, could he? And I was thinking, oh no, like we really are better bones now. And that was after we had gone with Iwobi CM. And Ox Southampton was phenomenal, and he deserves so much credit for that game. His range of passing, his abilities driving with the ball. But all this was down to the shape of the team and being allowed to express himself, having that space to run into, drive into, and we're killing it. We're killing ourselves. We're ourselves, and it's just painful talking about it, mate, because it's something that we keep saying, I keep repeating. We've seen it time and time again, but we made that early sub, didn't we, at half time, and the first 20. What a different team.
Yeah, no, it was really fantastic, but unfortunately for us at that point, we were already 2-0 down. I think we've already pretty much covered the first goal, but that second goal we conceded was unforgivable, the way it happens. Etienne Capoue just running through our whole team, our whole defence, getting a shot on goal at Petr Cech, who then parries it straight back into danger. Troy Deeney on hands, who deservedly scored a goal. I thought he absolutely ran our team into the ground last night.
He was brilliant, yeah.
Great game. I mean, what do you put a goal like that down to? Why can't we just do the simple things right?
Comedy of errors, mate, and it's absolutely embarrassing. The Gabriel throw was schoolboy, skipped off the turf a couple of yards in front of Ramsey. That's him out of the game. Capoe's gone. Everyone's saying he was very slow to get back in. You could say that, but Coquelin's got to do a hell of a lot better. He's square. Capoe just skips past him like he ain't even there. Then he's down to Mustafi. Troy Deeney makes a fantastic run in that. He goes across the two centre-backs, and what that does is because Monreal isn't there, Deeney's seen the space. Monreal 20 yards up the park for some reason. Like I said earlier, I don't know what we got to throw in on our halfway line. And he's gone. And I'm thinking, what are we doing, Arsenal? Like, why are we doing that? There's no need. For me, I'd have had him in line with my centre-backs. But so Troy Deeney spots that space. His run goes across. All of a sudden, Koscielny's dragged. Then Mustafi is isolated one-on-one. And then Mustafi's got to make a decision. And he turns his body the wrong way. Drives past him. As you say, Cech comes out, makes a save. But then there's 4 men. Monreal is still too slow to arrive on the scene. Deeney beats him to it. There's 4 men in the box, and we're just asleep. And it was just a comedy of errors. And for the rest of that first half, we still didn't change anything. We still didn't switch Iwobi and Alexis. We still didn't react, and we were still lacklustre. And that was the frustration. But when we did come out in the second half and we did make the changes, for me, it was the best 20 minutes I've seen Alex Iwobi play for Arsenal. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He was staying wide, getting the ball, dribbling at his man. Walcott providing the width on the other side. Within 5 minutes, Theo could have had 2. And on another day...
Yeah, that chance Iwobi took down the left-hand side where he took their whole team apart, played it into Ozil, then played it into Walcott. That should have been 2-1 in 5 minutes. That was
the Iwobi that I want to see. I want to see aggressive Iwobi. I want to see him taking on men. And clearly he proved in that 20 minutes he could. But it was no coincidence that he was naturally on that left side, and with Walcott stretching the whole pitch, it created the space for us to do it. And we're just such a better side. The only irk I have got is I thought, even though we did take Giroud off, I wasn't sure about it, because clearly they were going to get deeper and deeper. And when it got later stages of the game, the one man we needed was if you hate Giroud. But that begs the question, why would you start him when it's clear that, like you said, we've got Lucas Perez, Alexis Sanchez. We're going to need him. We're going to need him. If things don't go right, you bring Giroud on and start crossing the ball, we're going to score goals. But it was just very, very strange. And I think the next sub, for me, broke my heart. When he put Iwobi back in the centre, it just killed us. We lost all control in the middle of the park. We almost went 4-2-4. It was just sort of... It was almost
4-0-6.
Yeah, it was mad, and no one had defined positions, and it was like Walcott was coming in, and you had Walcott in, Sanchez in, Perez in, Ozil was just going. Everyone was just everywhere, and it was just like, this is panic stations, and that's something we've seen loads as well from us. And it's almost as if, oh, hang on a minute, we just got to throw all attackers on, forget about any shape, forget about our defence, forget about anything, just. Like you said, 4-0-6, and if we concede on the counter, which we easily could have, it happens. But if we get a goal, then happy days. But I just think that the shape for the first 20 of the second half was brilliant, and we should have persisted with that for a bit longer. And maybe, I mean, was Perez the wrong sub? I don't know. I wouldn't say he was the wrong sub, but really we didn't stick to any sort of defined roles and shape. And maybe personally, I might have looked at bringing Bellerin on for Gabriel. But
yeah, definitely.
it's just the way you look at it. It's just almost if you throw another striker on, we're going to score. But that ain't the way football works, is it, mate? Unfortunately.
I mean, we did have a chance with about 15 minutes left, which could have totally changed the complexity of the game. It was a throw-in, I think, from Gabriel into Lucas Perez. It was a great throw, by the way. And then he just absolutely he breaks the crossbar, pretty much. 2-2 with 15 minutes left. Anything could have happened. Anything could have happened. So, I mean, this could have been a very different result. But to be 2-0 down at home to Watford within 15 minutes is inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. I mean, did you ever feel at any point in that game when we were 2-0 down and there was any chance of us clawing it back to get the 3 points?
No, that's the horrible thing, mate. I really didn't. I couldn't see anything changes, and I was delighted that he made the early sub at half time and he changed the system. And yes, I was saying about maybe he shouldn't have took Giroud off, but realistically, he went for it and he done that, and it paid dividends. But then the next sub was the one that baffled me even more. Like I was just saying, he just completely changed the complexion. And that Lucas shot, I mean, that was right in front of me. What a strike. The noise it made, I could still hear the bar shaking now. Like, it was just unlucky. But it was one of them games where I've had a lot of them and I've not seen us getting the goal. I've not seen us coming and creating enough chances to score that goal. And often when we do it, it normally does come from someone like Olivier Giroud, like the West Brom game, just a nothing ball in the box. Well, great ball by Ozil, but Giroud's the outlet. With Southampton one when he won the penalty, and often Giroud's the one coming into the game influencing it. But with the Ramsey injury, with the early sub, it sort of took one more option away for us, didn't it? And when he did make them subs, he had to get him spot on. And I think the first one he did, the second one I thought was horrific, if I'm honest.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that I find most devastating with this game is not only does it kind of put the nail in the coffin for our title hopes. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think that's how we're all feeling at the moment. It's the fact that we had that game on Saturday, a game that we could have set up to be something incredibly exciting, something very special. Which, I mean, it could still be in a way, but it would have had the feel of. It would have been built up to that game again, like similarly to that game against Leicester last season where we beat them 2-1. I mean, we all know what happened when we won that game. So let's not get over our heads if we do beat Chelsea. But I mean, it could have been a really, really exciting game with a nice build up around it. But I mean, maybe it's better that we go into this game with this handicap behind us. Maybe that'll work to our advantage, being the underdogs in this game with no one gearing us up. But I mean, I'm devastated by last night. I really am. That's the closest I've been to tears after an Arsenal performance. It was really, really, really poor. But on that note, let's not talk about it for too much longer. This game coming up against Chelsea on Saturday. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to the game. Are you looking forward to it?
Do you know what, mate? I don't know if I am looking forward to it. Yeah, I'll be going, but you never know what could happen. At the end of the day, I was there and Andre Santos scored and we won 5-3. So let's not worry about it. It's football. Anything could happen on the day. I'm sure these Watford fans weren't looking forward to coming to the Emirates after the result of the weekend and the situation they've been in. But funny things happen, and the frustrating thing for me is we looked at Liverpool and Chelsea drop points. We look at Spurs drop points, Man United drop points. That's the games. You're playing Watford at home. We have to take advantage of that. And normally I wouldn't look at other teams and what they're doing, but it's so tight this year. It's important. It's really important to take advantage because we're not going to have another week where all them sides drop points, and we will be punished because there will be a week, and we've had it previously where we're the only team that loses and everyone else gains on us. And luckily, we didn't lose ground on most of them. Obviously, City have come right back up into it with their results tonight, but every point matters. And yeah, if we do beat Chelsea, but I just think there's other games. I think there's a lot of other games that we've still got to come that are dangerous for us, even games like Stoke away. So there's a hell of a long way to go this season, but looking at Saturday, you've got to go there with optimism. You've got to believe that he will pull out that front three. I want to see Welbeck, Sanchez, Walcott as our front three, and I'd like to see Bellerin and Gibbs back in, and I'd like to just go for the jugular because at the end of the day, that result against Watford has sort of left us in a situation now where unless we win this game, it really is over, in my opinion. And there's still a long way to go, but with our remaining games, momentum's a funny thing, and if we had beat Watford and gone into that game, I think even a draw could have, especially with the result, Chelsea dropping points, I think a draw at the Bridge wouldn't have been the end of the world. But now I think it's a must win, and I just want us to be going there with no fear, go for the jugular, and be exciting and fast and aggressive and see what we can do, because we show far too many teams too much respect. And yes, Chelsea are flying this season, and yes, they do deserve respect to some extent. But we're Arsenal, and I think we've got the players to damage any team. But I want to go and have some fun there and just see what we can do. I'd rather go there and lose 4-0 and try than go and do what we've done at City and just sit behind the ball for 80. That's not Arsenal, in my opinion, but that's just the way I see the game.
No, I mean, the one thing that does kind of get me a little bit excited about this game against Chelsea is the fact that they haven't been overly amazing in these big games. I mean, they're picking up results, don't get me wrong. I thought they played, I mean, I watched the highlights of their game against Liverpool. I thought they played well, which certainly deserving of a point. Could have quite easily had all three if Mindley hadn't saved that penalty. But, I mean, the game against Tottenham, despite winning at the Etihad, for large spells of that game, they were subpar, but they still, I mean, the quality prevailed in the end to show what a great side they are at the moment. But I still think this is a team that can be got at, especially with the personnel that we've got on board. You mentioned bringing in Walcott, Gibbs, Bellerin, etc. And you feel that with a back three, I really do feel we can get at the likes of Moses, Marcos Alonso, especially. We can really stretch this Chelsea side. It's going to be a massive task. I don't think we've even picked up a point at the bridge since that game where Andre Santos scored a goal. So it's going to be horrendous. And I'm going into this game kind of half-heartedly knowing what the outcome's going to be. But I mean, we can't look at games like that. We've got to have at least an ounce of positivity going into this match. So, I mean, I think we all know that I'm in total agreement with you about the front three. Welbeck, Walcott, and Alexis would be just bang on for this game. Maybe Lucas in there as well, to come on at 60 minutes or whatever, just to stretch them even further. Bellerin and Gibbs at fullback. Koscielny, Mustafi. I wouldn't even mind seeing David Ospina play this game, to be honest. I really wouldn't. But the midfield is obviously the one that's worth talking about because, I mean, it's gonna be Ainsley Maitland-Niles in there, surely, with the players that we've got at the moment. Coughlin, our only fit centre midfielder at the moment. So who would you be looking to put in the midfield for that game?
Well, I don't know how your man Ox is. I don't know how he's feeling. I mean, if he's okay, then personally, I would go for Ox. I mean, I think if we do talk about this front three we're talking about, it will help. It will help the midfield. And sometimes I think attack is the best form of defence for Arsenal. And the shape of the team ahead of them, like I keep repeating, but it's so important. And I really do think, and you mentioned there Marcos Alonso and Victor Moses, how about we make them think about it? Chelsea have been making other teams think about them too all season. And what about if we've got Walcott one side and Welbeck the other? They're going to have to think, hang on a minute, if I go Walkies here, Alexis Sanchez is in the middle of the park, it's one ball, it's one deep ball. We saw Ox do it lots, and Chelsea are probably going to dominate proceedings. But that's the beauty of them front three, that we can stretch teams like that, just in the flick of a switch, and it will help the balance in the middle of the park. And I'd go Cock and Ox personally. If Ox is fit enough, I definitely would do that. I mean, I'm sure Ramsey's a write-off, obviously judging by the way he come off. But Maitland-Niles, I was very impressed with him. I liked his energy. He was against Southampton, but it's a completely different ball game when you're playing in there against Chelsea. And I would just go no fear. And we know Ox can pass. We know Ox can travel with the ball. We've seen it do it against Bayern Munich at the Allianz in the middle of the park. So he's got no reason to be scared. And I mean, that's personally what I'd do, especially with that front three. That would be my midfield too, Cock and the Ox if they're fit, and with Ozil just in front of them, and then you got the Welbs, Sanchez, and Walcott front three. And I think that's dangerous. And we don't need to dominate proceedings, but we could go from one end to the other in a flick of a switch with them players. And we saw us do it against Chelsea at home with Sanchez and Ozil breaking away. I know they've changed formation since then, and they've done much more improved team since when we played them at home. But we know we can get at them, and with them players we've got. You talked about Ozil with the runners, mate. That's the nail on the head. Like if you've got Sanchez, Walcott, and Welbeck running around, like rotating, switching, you've got them running in behind. One of them's a centre forward. The next time they're wingers, and they've got to fear that. Defensive do fear that, and let's make Chelsea think about what they're going to be doing, because I guarantee you now, no matter how poor Walcott plays or no matter how poor Welbeck would play, they're dangerous. They need that one moment, and it's always in the back of the defender's mind. And I don't think that Chelsea's centre three are that good. I really don't. I think they could be got at, and I think Alexis is that man to buzz in and around. And look, if we go at them and play with a bit of balance, the centre midfield will take care of itself. And Coquelin and Ox are very, very good players. Coquelin and Ramsey are very, very good players. It's more for me about how we play as a team than worrying personally about is it A or is it B. I think it's more to do with the collective rather than worrying about the individual abilities of the players, because we know they're good enough.
Yeah, definitely. We really, really need to see a performance from Arsenal in that game on Saturday. Just very briefly going back to that game against Watford, which I know obviously we don't want to talk about too much, but one thing I noticed from the Arsenal, certain players in the Arsenal team, was the amount of petulance within them. Gabriel throwing out the corner flag, Monreal taking a dive, Alexis Sanchez, I don't know if you saw when Ramsey went off injured, but the way he kind of did that, I want to end my life pose for a good 10 minutes. I mean,
yeah.
You wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago in the era of the Invincibles. Well, obviously, that's even longer ago now, about 13, 14 years ago. But, I mean, why do you think players act like that? It was really poor at a time when we needed these players to act like grown men.
Frustrations, mate. It's serious frustrations. And we got a question, because every time you see the group outside of the pitch, they look like a well-knit group. You see, when it's going well, we're brilliant. But when we start a game that slow and players are struggling to implement themselves on the game, and we're not looking at one or two, we're looking at 7 or 8 players who were all really, really struggling to find any ball, to find any spaces, to play any link football. We were just atrocious. And I think it's just deep frustration. And we were 2-0 down so early in the game. And from that moment on, you're chasing, and you know that every decision's going to go against you. You know that everything Watford do is going to take 10 minutes, and rightfully so. I don't blame them. If we're away in the Allianz 2-0 up, I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be tying my shoelace every 5 seconds. Do you know what I mean? It's just the game you play. That's the game of football. And it really is just down to frustration for me, mate. When you see they're grown men and they want to win games. And yes, it is petulant, and maybe you could ask for them to be more together. But I mean, a little one back to you. I don't know if you think they're not happy with the way the team's been set up. I mean, do you ever get that? Do you ever get that sort of feeling from the players? Because we've seen how free and excited they were at the weekend, and then they come back to this different style, and maybe they're frustrated that they're limited. I don't know.
I mean, I definitely do with one man, and that's Alexis Sanchez, who evidently was not happy with the way the team was playing last night. And I don't think he has been for large spells of this season. I think he's just so much better in a free role up top. I mean, yeah, he lines up a centre forward, but he's not really playing that role. He's interchangeable with the players around him, and it works to his favour. But I mean, every player has to be frustrated in some way, because Chamberlain should have started this game, and he's got no players have defined roles in the teams apart from that back line. Gabriel starting at right back is the one that I can't get my head around at all, because it was just it kind of sums up everything you need to know about Arsenal over the past 10 years in terms of arrogance, in terms of underestimating opposition. It's one small change, and although Gabriel has done very well at right back, end of the day, he's not a right back, and we've got a fully fit one on the bench who's just had a blinding game against Southampton. He needs to be geared up for that game against Chelsea the weekend, playing for 60 minutes. And the thing that I really could not get my head around for this match coming up against Chelsea, and the fact that we rested so many players going into the game, is, I mean, why would you rest them? Why would you not just start them and then play them for 60 minutes and then take off your Ozils, your Sanchez's, get the game won? I mean, if we'd have started with the lineup that we've been talking about for the entirety of this video, we'd have won it in half an hour, I think. And that's not me being arrogant. The players that we've got, and the defence, and the players that Watford have got, I mean, we'd have run riot with the players, the personnel that we've got in the team. And as I say, it's not me being arrogant. I think we really do have the quality of player to dismantle a side such as Watford. They've got Eunice, Kabul and Proddle at centre-half. So, yeah, I don't know about you, but I think it was totally wrong of Wenger to play a weakened side. But a weird part of me feels like yesterday's team, apart from Bellerin, maybe was the strongest 11. I get a weird feeling about that. I really do.
But you think that's Arsenal's? You think Arsenal?
I feel like he genuinely thinks that's one of his strongest 11s. I think he'll always keep Iwobi in the side, and when he plays with Olivier Giroud, who seems to be a spearhead in this team at the moment, I don't think those two can play at all together. I don't think they benefit each other's game in the slightest. I don't think playing Alexis on the flank is working to his favour, although he does a fine job there. He's a centre forward for me nowadays. I don't think it works to Ozil's game at all. It nullifies his creativity. No. The midfield is it's null and void essentially, because Coughlin and Ramsey can't really do anything. I mean, it's just a mess. If I'm being honest,
well,
it's a
Cookie,
mess.
You spot on. Like, your frustrations are all coming out, and it's the same as me. I feel it so much, but I think it's the thing for me. It's Wenger's insistence and persistence in playing this style of football at home where it doesn't suit anyone. It doesn't actually suit anyone. And what you said about Gabby at right back, yeah, he's done well, but he's also, he's a centre back playing at right back, and we're chasing a game and we're asking him to be overlapping, and it's not him. He's a centre back, man. You wouldn't. I mean, I liken him to someone like Mike Keown. You wouldn't see Keown tearing down the wing. Like, it's just, and that right side for me. I mean, I'll give it an analogy. It was like going from. It was like having a Ferrari at the weekend and going back to a mobility scooter at like midweek. I mean, it's mad. You have Bellerin and Walcott one day, and then you go back to Iwobi and Gabriel, and neither are naturally right-sided players. Neither are going to get wide and retain the width and get up the touch line, and neither are going to create chances from those areas. And no one benefits from what we try to do at home, especially against these lesser sides. And it's a recurrence, and we've seen it time and time again. You talked about Swansea last year. We've had 4 or 5 this season, and mate, I can't explain it. And this is where my frustrations lie with Arsenal, because we all know the squad we got. We all know the abilities we got. We all know the abilities of the players. We all know where they play best. We can all see that it wasn't working after 10 minutes. We've all seen this same thing struggle to work time and time again. Really matters. Can't see it, and I think it's stubbornness. To look at getting rid of Jenks and Debussy and rely on Gabriel, who's essentially a learning centre back in the Premier League, is just, for me, mind numbing. Absolutely mind numbing, and it's just sad, mate. It's a really sad state of affairs, because last season we saw Leicester finish 10 points clear of us and win the title, and no one else was at the races, and it was our best chance since we last won the league, and we threw it away. Like you said, after the Leicester game, we could have gone on a roll. We threw it away. This season, and last season, by the way, he implemented the same tactic. He went Joel Campbell right wing, Theo Walcott left wing, and Giroud up front. We starved him of any service. We come narrow. We relied on our fullbacks, and it all hit the fan, and it was poor. And for some reason, recently, he's reverted to the same tactic, and we're seeing it again when he's got so many options. He could have Sanchez up front, Welbeck up front, Walcott up front, Perez up front. But he's gone Giroud with no wingers, no fullbacks, essentially. And we've seen the same blueprint of teams come in, sit narrow, prey on our weaknesses, and away they go on a counter-attack. We're chasing the game. And it's just so painful to see the same thing when we know what we could have, and we've seen glimpses of it. But are we ever going to see it under Arsene Wenger again? And that's what I keep questioning myself. And I'm finding it harder and harder to try and, with the things I'm seeing, because it's becoming insanity seeing the same thing over and over again. It's mad.
I mean, I feel like it was really evident that we were guilty of looking ahead to that Chelsea game too much last night.
Yeah, everyone to a man, mate. Everyone to a man. I agree with you.
Not just the players, but the way Arsene Wenger implemented that team. I mean, I don't think he put much thought into that side. I really do think he just put that team out thinking, yep, they're better than Watford. We're playing at home. We should beat them. I think it was as simple as that. And how many times has that happened? How many times? And now, I mean, look at these 2 games. I mean, even if we lose to Chelsea on Saturday, and at least we'd have banked 3 points yesterday. So I mean, look at those 2 games. What one are we more likely to win? Watford or Chelsea? I mean, at least finish the task in front of you before going to Stamford Bridge. It's ludicrous management. It's ludicrous.
We've been talking about Chelsea, mate. Even the fan base, we've been talking about this Chelsea game for far too long. We've been worrying about the big games for far too long. We're not winning the small games. We've got to win the small games. Like the teams like Watford, and there's no mugs in the Premier League. They've turned up. They've signed Niang from Milan, and he's come in straight away. What an impact! Troy Deeney, as soon as he's got a partner with him, they're a different proposition. And people like you said, Kabul and Prodal, they're bang average footballers. But my God, as soon as the Premier League team gets rolling, and they were tactically astute as well. I found it very, very interesting. I actually thought they were playing 4-5-1, and like I said, and then they reverted to a 4-4-2 when they got the ball and went forward, and we couldn't deal with it because, like you said, we've almost just thrown. It's more like tic-tacs, not tactics. That's what I think it is. It's just we've just put a load of individual tic-tacs on the pitch and gone, there you go, and then the tactics don't come through. And realistically, he made a tactical change at half time, and it worked for 20 minutes, and then we went back to tic-tacs, and it was just a load of mishmash, and it's painful, mate. And you cannot afford to be like that in the Premier League at this level. you cannot afford to just think you're going to win games. And yeah, with Chelsea's a big game, but like you said, why are we not focusing so hard on getting 3 points against Watford? Because you're only as good as your previous game, and you're only looking towards your next game, if you ask me.
Yeah, definitely. And before the both of us combust, I'll just wrap it up there. Thanks, Woz, for joining me tonight. Just quickly, before we do go, let's get your score prediction for that game at Stamford Bridge on Saturday.
I never like saying we're going to lose. It all depending on the team. If he plays that team that we discussed, I honestly do fancy us. I honestly do think we've got a chance. And if things go right on a day, if we get decisions, I think we could come away with a victory. But if he plays Giroud and he plays that narrow team, I think we'll lose 2 or 3-0. But I do honestly think we could go out and get a decent result, and we'll run them very, very close. So if he does play that exciting team, I fancy us. I fancy 2-1. But that's me being a blind Arsenal fan. I go Chelsea half-time, Arsenal full-time, 2-1.
You know, I mean, I'm inclined to agree. If we play a team that's got Welbeck, Alexis, Walcott, Lucas Perez in him, any team with pace and fluidity going forward, Bellerin at right back will make a whole world of difference as well. Maybe Gibbs at left back as well. With pace and excitement in the team, hopefully we can at least get a draw out of this game. But I'm really confident if we do play the right lineup, we can get a win, because as I've said for the whole video, we've got the personnel, the pace within the team to do it. So, I mean, I'm not going to be too optimistic, but I think Arsene Wenger will surprise us. I think he'll look at that game on Tuesday and think that there were massive, massive problems. I know we've said that many a time before, but I mean, it was seriously bad in that first half against Watford. It's no coincidence that we played better football when Giroud went off, Alexis played up top, and Walcott came into the game. So I think he'll hopefully take note of that. And I'm going to go for, I'll say 3-1. I'll say 3-1. We'll concede Diego Costa, opening 5 minutes. Theo Walcott hat-trick to bring it back to 3-1. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it. That'd be beautiful, wouldn't it? It'd be absolutely beautiful. Maybe Carl Jensen coming on to make it 4-1 in the last couple of minutes. That's just what dreams are made of. That'd be perfect. But anyway, thank you ever so much for joining me tonight.
No, legend. Thank you very much for having me on, mate. Enjoyed it.
No worries. We'll definitely get more of these done in the future. Anyway, my thanks to Woz for coming on tonight. Thank you all for tuning in to the debut episode of the Cannon Chat. Fantastic viewers at what is such a late hour, coming up to midnight. I'm absolutely knackered. As I say, I think I'm going to combust at some point. The heat has just come back on in my house, so that's a positive. Anyway, on that note, my thanks to Woz, as I say. Thank you all for watching tonight. Please drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to AFC Game by Game. And from myself and Woz, we'll be speaking to you very soon.